The Rosen Report, sports like never before. Brought to you by Gooch Live and Paramount Sports Management. Here's Rosie.
Good Tuesday afternoon to everybody. It's a little rainy, actually. I'm in Newmarket. It rained a little, but I think our guest, Steven, he's really not a guest anymore. He's kind of family. Steven Ellis from the Hockey News. He actually looked like he got caught in the rain downtown Toronto. We'll talk to him about that in a second. We're going to have a short one today, but we're going to discuss everything to do with last night's game, where Steven thinks the game is going, that the series is going. I'm going to ask him a couple of questions about a few things maybe off the radar, but on my radar. But first, Rosie's rant. And I got a rant today that kind of bothers me a little, okay? I know, listen, I was a Paralympian for 3 games, and I know that things are getting better. The CBC and TSN and the IPC, they're doing a lot better. But this weekend, I had a chance to watch some of the Olympic trials. Fantastic. Olympic gymnastics trials, the swimming trials was great. Where's the Paralympic trials? They're going on, and they're amazing. And there's some incredible athletes who are disabled in this country, and the trials are the same. But we televise the Olympic trials. We don't televise the Paralympic trials. I think it's about time in 2021, leading up to the Summer Games next month in Tokyo, that we start televising the trials in the Paralympics. I'm not going to get too crazy about it because we've come a long way, but we need to go a lot further. I'll leave it at that. Let's bring up the one, the only Hockey News, Steven Ellis.
I'm surprised they're not doing any of the Paralympic stuff on TV or even on CBC's website.
Yeah, you know, well, they have the Road to the Olympics on CBC with Scott Russell. He's amazing. And they'll show the odd 30-second piece, but they're showing the entire trials. NBC shows the entire swimming trials and track trials, and it's incredible. Gymnastics, but not the Paralympics, only the Olympics. It really bothers me because the Paralympics, if you ever get a chance, I don't know if you've had a chance to go to a Paralympic Games.
I've been to no Olympic game.
Well, Vancouver was probably your best opportunity. But anyway, the Paralympic Games are incredible, winter and summer. So maybe down the road you'll get a chance to go. But you know what?
Like, there's a in Oakville, the rink I used to work at, 16 Mile. They have a rink that they kind of designate towards using for Paralympians and in sledge hockey players. And it's like, these guys are way better athletes than the rest, like what you usually see, because they got so many things to overcome. And it's like, damn, it's like you know all about it. It's like, let's get more attention on it.
Listen, I was just watching. I was supposed to be in Ostrava last week. The para hockey, the sled hockey world champions happened. Canada played great in the preliminary round, beat the U.S. 2-1 in game 1. Had it, which drove me crazy. Let's see what you think about this. So I drove Gooch crazy with this. So the preliminary round ends. Canada ends up 3-0 in the A pool. The U.S. is 2-1. In the B pool, Russia's back in, but the B pool is totally separate. It's much lighter. Russia ends up 3-0, but they beat Norway 19-1. And then the semifinals should be Korea and Canada, Russia and the U.S. No. It's Russia and Canada, the 2 3-0 teams, and Russia, because they had a better goal differential, gets last change. Canada had to get, listen to this, people. Canada had to get change. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. Canada had to, because Russia was ranked higher, even though Canada was number 1 in the world, Russia, because they had a better goal differential, Canada had to dress in a dressing room that was an 8-minute walk to the ice between periods.
What?
Yeah.
That's a little ridiculous.
So they beat Russia in a great game 2-1, but unfortunately the gold medal game was probably, unfortunately, if the guys are watching, they'll be, but the truth is the truth. It was probably the worst defeat in Canadian para hockey, sled hockey history from day one when it started in 94. They lost 5-1 to the U.S. They were outshot, Steven, 33-3. 3 shots on goal the entire game.
That's like,
at the end of the first period, the shots were 16-1, and it was only 2-1 for the U.S. The first and only shot, Billy Bridges let a cannon go. And unfortunately, Dominic Larocque stood on his head. The U.S. could have scored 10, but hopefully the team will take the next 7-8 months and be ready for Beijing, and it'll be a better outcome. The U.S. are a great team. I don't know if you saw any highlights.
Yes,
there was one great goal that
was a great goal.
Declan Farmer is an incredible player, and that's a tough one, man. On that breakaway stretch pass, Dominic Larocque, I do not miss those days.
And Steve Cash again, once the man in the U.S. again.
He only had 3 shots on goal in the final, but he does it. He continuously does it, and he's a good kid too. He's a real good kid. Let's talk hockey. Obviously, watched the game last night. Thoughts on game 1? Now you got to win 4, but thoughts after game 1?
I kind of expected Tampa to come out flying exactly how they did, and when you look at the Canadiens, like even though they had the thing people are saying is like, oh, they were more rested. They had 1 day of extra rest. It's not like they had like 3 or 4 days. Like 1 day doesn't really make a big difference, especially when you still got to travel. And Tampa Bay was already home in Tampa. For the Lightning, we expected a high flying offense. I think the question was how healthy truly was Nikita Kucherov. And last night, I don't think there was any concerns there. Vasilevsky played as good as we'd expect. But the big thing there was just they really made Canada's or Montreal's life miserable. Get into the neutral zone, and then nope, you're not getting any farther. Montreal, the one thing they were doing really well against like Winnipeg and Toronto was out hitting them. Well, Tampa Bay was playing the more physical game. So kind of everything that Montreal usually does well, Tampa took away from them, and that worked out really well in Tampa's favor. I don't think we're going to see another blowout like that again, because we know the Canadiens, they typically have just kind of kept things close, but I think they've learned something big. And the key thing here is they don't want to go back to Montreal game 3. And hopefully the rumor is that right now that they're going to have 10,000 fans. Hopefully that happens so they can get them. I will be there with the hockey news, my very first hockey game in over a year. And for the Canadiens, they don't want to go down 2-0. Yeah, the home fan base might make things better, but could be a rough few days if they go down 2-0 before that.
Yeah, I heard today that the talk out of the government is that they are going to allow 10,500 is what I heard today. So hopefully that, because 10,000 crazy Canadian fans will be like 20,000 American fans. Hopefully that'll change. What were your thoughts on Price Vasilevsky? That was the big talk. I thought Terry made some huge stops. Listen, there was a couple. He had no chance on double knocks, own goal off of the stick. I thought he played really well. What were your thoughts?
If he's not in net and you put Jake Allen, and no offense to Jake Allen, he's a good goalie, but that's more like a 7-8-1 game. Price did a lot of important saving there. And I think near the end, it was kind of like the team just kind of gave up. So I wasn't too concerned with the final score. Like truly maybe a 3-1 game would be kind of where it started to fall apart. But for Montreal there, I thought Price looked incredible. Andre Vasilevsky, again, not a question. He's one of the best goalies we're basically in this current era of goaltending. Andre Vasilevsky is one of the best. He's going against Carey Price. That's the thing, though, for Montreal. For as good as Price has been, Vasilevsky's kind of like just there to negate it and make that bonus, or that the thing that makes Price so important to the Canadiens is not there when you've got a goalie who's just as good, if not better, in a lot of cases, Andre Vasilevsky, and you got better defense there in front. So, obviously we're expecting a lot out of both goalies here. Montreal needs Price to play better than Tampa needs Vasilevsky to play. But overall, like that was still a pretty good goaltending game for a game that saw 6 goals scored.
Absolutely, and it could have a big potential turnaround could have been Shea Weber's mini breakaway when I thought he put it into Vasilevsky, which is tough. Big defenseman at the end of his shift, coming down, he's lumbering in, he's not used to breakaways. I thought he just should have let one rip, like just an absolute 20 feet out slap shot top corner. If you don't score, take Vasilevsky out for a couple games. That big defensemen used to do that. If they were on a breakaway, they'd blast one from 15, 20 feet out.
When I play defense, that's all I would do is take slap shots. And I was one of the only guys on my team that liked to do that. So I worked out well. But it's like that was actually kind of what I was thinking too. It's just like, why not? We know your hands aren't as good as, like forward, Suzuki or Cole Caulfield. Well, your real thing is strength. And he could have done something there and he didn't.
Yeah. What do you think of that Gallagher situation? Now, Gallagher's a type of guy, you love him on your team, you hate him when you're playing against him. He's just a kind of little, he's got talent, man, and he doesn't stop. He's the Energizer bunny. He just keeps going and going and going. But I thought at the end there when he went in and he got hammered, knocked to the ice and blood everywhere. What were your thoughts on that? Were you surprised that nothing came out of that penalty-wise?
I wasn't necessarily, and I know that might be different from what a lot of other people thought, but it's like it looked kind of just like I don't want to penalize a guy. Like, yeah, there were some. I thought maybe a minor, but people were asking for who was that? Who dropped Sergachev to kick out of the game? Yeah. I didn't think Sergachev should have got kicked out of the game, and obviously he didn't. People were saying he should. It's like, well, I don't know. He was. They were definitely wrestling, but I don't think the head slamming part was I think that was a complete accident.
Absolutely.
I think he just kind of lost his balance as he was already getting shoved. That's kind of what I saw to me. There's some comparisons to what Tom Wilson did against the Rangers in that one game, but in the end, it didn't feel like it was malicious in any means, and I'm no problem with it. It was just kind of funny when the one guy who gets a penalty out of the whole thing was for something completely different. Yeah. But Sergachev, you could have argued for sure a 2-minute roughing penalty.
I think the thing that made it look worse was the blood. You know, you had the 100%. Blood dripping down his face, and everybody that doesn't really know the game. And in the Stanley Cup Final, you get a lot of people that are just watching that don't know a lot about the game, and they see blood dripping down a guy's face, and they just think, oh my God, that's it. He should never play again. I didn't think it was anything terrible. And Gallagher's one of these guys, if he's not bleeding every single game, he's not trying.
I think it looked like he just re-aggravated, where he already got cut before. So it's like, it wasn't like he got cut necessarily. But I'm just expecting to have a bloody face, like I said, every single game. That's just kind of what his identity has been in these playoffs. So again, I'm not too worried about that whole thing.
Yeah. Steve, I want to talk to you about something that I heard on Leaf Lunch today, and they had to bring up the Leafs and or Hockey Central. I call it Leaf Lunch, Hockey Central, which realistically, they talk about the Leafs all the time, whether they're in them or they're not in. And they made a comment about the Leafs re-signing Simmons, $1.8 million for 2 years. I don't think it's a terrible move. I don't think Simmons, after his injury, did anything, but whatever. But the thing I want to ask you about, people are talking about how important it is to have these veterans. And yeah, they had Thornton and Simmons and Spezza. I'm happy that they re-upped Spezza. But to me, isn't it more important to look at Montreal, Stahl, Toffoli, Perry? Veterans, but different. Veterans that got Stanley Cup rings. They all can be in that dressing room now leading up to tomorrow's game and talk to the young guys about what it takes to win. It's been a long time since they won, but they still have won. How important is it? You're around the game a lot. How important is it to have guys in that room that are winners, not just veterans, but winners?
That's the thing. I've always thought it was kind of overstated to a point where I thought, Travis Moen scored a Stanley Cup winning goal. Was he any impact in that 2007 playoffs? Otherwise, not necessarily, but he scored a pretty big goal for the Anaheim Ducks. And then people were saying, when he got brought over to Montreal, it's like, okay, this guy's got a Stanley Cup. Let's see what he can do with his team. It's like, well, there's only so much he can actually do. He's not that great of a player. In the end, though, I think it's obviously way more important to the players than the average fan or even the media, because we don't get to see that type of impact. When people are talking about captains, oh, this guy's not a good captain, or this guy's just not great in the room. How do you know? If you aren't on that team and you're not around these guys every day, you truly don't know. So it seems like they brought Eric Stahl in for a reason. Eric Stahl hasn't played that well. I would argue that maybe he should sit out, and they could when they bring back Joel Armia, that's the guy they sit out. I don't think Eric Stahl's had a great playoffs, but they want him in the lineup for a reason. They want him there instead of someone who's a little younger, who could bring more to the table, but because he could be someone that could be a good influence in that room. Yeah, he won the Stanley Cup, and it was about 15 years ago, but he still went through it. He's played for Team Canada and Olympic hockey. This guy has been in winning situations. He understands how it works, and that is good for a team that is really being carried by a bunch of the younger guys like Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki. So I think those guys are very important. And while Price hasn't been able to win the cup in his career, he's won Olympic golds. He's been really good. He's been strong in the past, so we know he can be there. And obviously Toffoli, he's someone who has been just a huge revelation for the, well, I should say revelation. We knew he'd be good, but just a huge addition to this team in a really big way, especially in this playoffs. So having those guys there that know what it's like for the players there, I'd say it's definitely a nice little push.
Yeah. And I think you make a real important comment. Just because you've been a Stanley Cup winner, I'm not just blanking it, the fourth line left winger who got 3 minutes of play, how much does he bring to the table? Yes, he's got a Stanley Cup ring. It's like the backup goal. Despite the fact that it's been a long time, he's a guy that's battled, and he was a big part of the cup win. And even last year, yes, they lost to Tampa, but he was a big part of that team going as far as they did. So I think it is important. One thing you said that I think is critical to so many people, it drives me crazy. I'm going to have a Rosie's rant about it one of these days, is when people say, he's good in the room. He's good in the room. And they have no clue. They, like you said, guys used to say that every once in a while about our Team Canada when we were, driving to try to win back-to-backs in 2006, 2007. Hey, what about, I'm not going to mention a name, but what about, what's his name, Rosie? Is he good in the room? And I wanted to say something, and I said, no, you know what? If I say something, I know it. I'm in that room. But then the rumor's going to start about this guy, and I think just too many people go too far about that. I want to ask you about the Carey Price talk right now. Gooch had Liam McGuire on last week, and he talked about the 4 goalies in history that have won a Vezina, a Conn Smythe Trophy on a losing team. I knew about Hextall, and I knew about Giguère. I didn't know about Roger Crozier and Glenn Hall. Forgot about those. Those were a long time ago. Do you think that Price is a lock, or do you think if there's a few more 5-1 games and Tampa wins in 4 or 5, that Point or Kucherov or maybe even Vasilevsky, I don't know. If I'm asked right now, I give it to Price, but there's still a lot more hockey to go. What's your thoughts?
I've never been someone who says that the guy or a player on a losing team shouldn't get it and that it should go to a guy on the winning team. But in this case, it's like, man, Kucherov's having such an incredible run, and Braden Point's been so good. So it's like, I think it's hard to take away from either of those two guys. If they go to 6 or 7 games, and we're talking 2-1 games where Montreal wins, maybe. I do think it's just going to be really tough because you do got these 2 Tampa players who've been so good. Not as good as Vasilevsky's been. I don't think he's a favorite truly. Maybe 4 or 5, but I think the top 3 being Price and Kucherov and Point, with the Tampa guys getting a bit of an edge just because they've been playing so good. But it's so hard to get to a point like this without having an incredible goaltender. And you look at the 2 goalies right now, even look last year when Anton Khudobin was playing outstanding hockey. You're not going to see guys like Antti Niemi kind of just flubbing their way to the final anymore. You're going to see you need goalies that are actually playing pretty good hockey, and that's where you're getting at a Price. He's the lock for Montreal on their side if they go farther, but in this case, I don't know. I still think Tampa's probably going to win. In that case, I think you got to go with either Kucherov or Point, whoever has the better series.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'm always going to try to go to the goalies, being a part of the goalie union. But I'm glad that you went back to 2010 and brought my Hawks back into the play with Antti Niemi. That was a beauty way back. Let's talk about something that could happen and has not happened. I don't think it's ever happened with one player, but it hasn't happened since the Islanders winning back-to-back-to-back and then to back, of course. But with Mr. Morant, who is quite the chirper, this guy just doesn't shut up. Wins a cup with St. Louis 2 years ago, wins a cup with Tampa last year, can win 3 rings in a row on 2 different teams. Thoughts about something like that? Because he's a fringe guy, but he brings a lot to the table for a fringe guy.
When we talk about guys that are good contributors in the room and someone that everyone likes. Patrick Maroon is a guy that, from players I've talked to and a few other media reports, it's like, yeah, they love him. That he's not going to go out there and get you a lot of points, but he's also not going to cost you any games. He brings a physical aspect. He definitely gets in the head of the opponents. He does a lot of things really well, and that's why he's on these teams. That's why, Tampa's got some pretty good depth that they don't need him, but they're playing him because he still brings an impact to the team. So I think it'd be really cool if he's able to get another cup because, again, 3 in a row would be really cool. And with 2 different teams now, I think he's got to be traded somewhere else next year, whoever's going to win the cup, because he needs to keep that streak alive. But it's been pretty cool to see kind of just how important he is on these teams. And it's like, you notice him. He's not going to get you a lot of points, but when he's on the ice. And maybe it's because his helmet, he's using an old Reebok-style helmet, the CCM logo, which is a little different than what you see. But otherwise, I'd say he's definitely noticeable out there in a pretty solid way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love they keep showing that when he was doing the chicken at the bench there. I did a lot of stupid things like that too. Just as we were going off the ice, I tried to be the last guy off and try to get under the skin of one of the guys. So anyways, I love the way he plays, and he could be a guy that they win the cup again this year, that somebody looks to pick up next year if Tampa doesn't want to re-up him. I'm pretty sure he was just on a 1-year deal.
I believe so. And when I was thinking about this, you're talking about him flopping his arms going by the bench. The one thing I thought was hilarious when they showed the 2 goalies when they were doing the announcements yesterday before the game, and they showed Carey Price, and he looks calm, relaxed, and then you see Vasilevsky, and he looks like he's about to rip the head off a bear.
Yeah. Yeah, 2
completely different goalies in that sense. One wants to kill, one wants to protect.
I know, and Vasilevsky with those eyes, he's got Jordan, great, the Panchot kid, Jordan Laroche, great producer, says he's gone a 1-year deal. So he's been going 1 year. Who knows? Somebody picks him up. Wouldn't that be insane if they win a cup this year? Somebody picks him up and he wins a 4th cup in a row with 3 teams next year.
Do you think a team that's just looking for a fringe guy like that will just make him a deal just solely for the luck factor?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, last thing on the series. We're 1 game in. I don't want people to go crazy out there and think it's over. I do think Tampa. I called Montreal in 7, but I do think Tampa's going to be very, very, very difficult to beat. Your thoughts on what we can expect in Game 2?
It's going to be much tighter. And what we've seen from Montreal, especially against Vegas, was they kind of bounced back from a poor Game 1 and just out of nowhere, everyone was shot out of a cannon in the second game in the first period. So I think for Montreal, the key thing here is score early. That's when you guys do really well, force the other team to chase, because then you can play pretty solid shutdown defense. And Carey Price doesn't blow a lot of leads when Montreal's winning. So you could trust Price. And I know some people have already suggested switch Price for Jake Allen. I think it's stupid.
No, come on.
Not a chance. For Price, you're gonna have to rely on him. We know that, but Montreal's got to score early and force Tampa Bay to chase. Their 1 goal was a pretty fluky goal. We're gonna be fully fair there. It could have been a 5-0 game. It could have been 7-0, 8-0. The Canadiens really need to just look a little more alive than they did, because they just truly didn't look like they were in their element. It looked like we were watching a scrimmage between an NHL team and maybe a top-level AHL team, and seeing how that works out. It just didn't seem very fair for the Canadiens.
Yeah, unbelievable. The one thing that people start talking about putting Allen in this. I don't know, honestly, if you know the game, if you know anything about the game, and you say something like that, that could be the silliest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Even if Price had the worst game of his life, they're not going anywhere without Carey. Is there a chance, Steven, and you're going to be, you're going to be one of the very, very fortunate to be at that game Friday night. I'm extremely jealous, but if Tampa wins tomorrow night and goes to Montreal up 2, how tough is it going to be for them? I know it's an if, but how tough will it be for Montreal? And can they still come back and win it?
I actually think it wouldn't be. I think regardless, they're going to be in solid shape for Game 3. Obviously, coming back would be pretty tough, but Game 3 in particular, if you're getting 10,000 people at the game, or 10,500, that's going to boost that team up in such a big way that we haven't been able to see, because Montreal hasn't played in front of more than just a couple thousand people at a time. Of course, their first game was only a couple hundred. So I think that would be a huge way to really kind of boost things up, where I think the Canadiens are just going to fly. The Canadiens thrive off of the energy of the Bell Center. I've never been to the Bell Center myself. This is my first time. But this is one where you know the atmosphere is electric no matter what. Now you're throwing in a couple extra thousand people there. I think we're going to see a pretty loud building. I think we're going to see an energized team that's going to be out there just trying to kill in the first 2 minutes, and it's going to work.
It's a phenomenon. I've been there a bunch of times, not for quite a while, but it is a great building to watch a game. Make sure you go hungry, because the hot dogs. I've been told. I hope they're still having food there. Who knows with COVID when they have food or not? But if they do, and in the press box you're able to get hot dogs, oh my God, best hot dogs in the league.
I've been told that, yeah, and that's something that's on my. There's two things I want to do when I'm in Montreal. One is eat the hot dogs there, and there's a new go-kart track about an hour away, owned by Alex Tagliani, former IndyCar driver, and a current NASCAR Pinty's driver, and I want to go check that out. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, it's I haven't been to a game since March 10th. Against the Leafs, March 10th of 2020, between the Leafs and Lightning. If you told me that night the next game I'd see would involve the Lightning and the Montreal Canadiens in the Stanley Cup Final, I would be extremely confused. Because first off, why am I not going to the rest of the regular season? Why are they playing each other in the final? And why is Montreal there?
Yes, and Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final, which is even crazier. So you chose. You said Tampa. I didn't get your.
My overall prediction was Montreal in 7. But okay, that's the pick. That's my official pick. I think my brain is saying no. It's gonna be like Tampa in 5, but I don't want it to go to 5. I want this to be a fun long series, because Game 1 was not that great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said my heart said Montreal in 7. My brain says Tampa in 6. But hopefully it'll be a great game tomorrow night. One last question before I let you go, because you are going absolutely nuts, I'm sure, getting ready for tomorrow. And then how excited are you going to be being in Montreal? You must just be over the moon, going to be in the Stanley Cup Final.
I've never been to a Stanley Cup Final. Never covered one as a media member. And the cool thing is, just from a personal note, like the Montreal Canadiens was the team I grew up watching, and that's the one my mom was a fan of, and she got me into hockey in the first place. So being able to see that at my first Stanley Cup Final is special. It's too bad we're not going to see 20,000 people in the crowd. Yeah. There might be about 1 million people outside of the crowd. We actually booked our plans of how we're going to handle everything based off of what we expect the crowds to be like after a game. If Montreal goes out and wins Game 3, and then wins Game 4, what is the crowd going to be like? There's still obviously the chance that we could see the Stanley Cup awarded in Game 4, and that'd be pretty cool while I'm down there. But I'm really looking forward to this. It's just, for everything I've heard from people saying, like, there's no better place to watch hockey in Montreal. I'm trying to get that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Will you be at every game in Montreal, 3, 4, and potentially 6?
3, 4, and 6, yes.
Fantastic. Okay, last thing. Leafs. We got to end it with a Leaf thing. Smart. The Simmons deal, is it smart or is it silly?
It's smart, but it's like, I truly wonder how much more he's got left. Like we saw in the second half of that season, he did not look good and not really any impact in the playoffs. So, can't go wrong with the salary, and it's not a long term. So it's like the contract itself's not bad. It's just like, how useful is he going to be in those 2 years? And that's my question.
Yeah, I agree with that. Steven Ellis from the Hockey News. It's nice behind you in red. We see that. Move your head for a second. Look at that. That's beautiful. I love that chair you're in. Steven Ellis from the Hockey News. Love having you on, whether it's a Rosen Report or Gooch Live. You are the best. Have a great time in Montreal, and look forward to talking to you soon.
I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Take care. Steven Ellis. This guy is a genius. I'm telling you, he knows everything there is to know about everything hockey, and a lot about race car driving too. He's pretty damn good. Maybe one of these days, I told him he'll get me on the computer to figure things out. For Robert Wine, our favorite guest of all time, I just looked at a comment he made about the Team Canada being in the having to play Russia and kind of got penalized. Yeah, you're right, Robert. They were penalized. Absolutely, they were penalized. It doesn't make any sense. They had to go through Russia to get to the U.S. They ended up in 5 games going 4 wins and 1 loss. The 1 loss, unfortunately, was the gold medal game They will be back as good as new in Beijing in March. We'll get Billy Bridges on at some point before then. We'll get the general manager, Marshall Starkman, on, and we'll get Greg Westlake, one of my all-time favorites, my roommate for years. Have a great evening. No hockey tonight, but tomorrow night, Game 2 in Tampa. Montreal down 1-0. Hopefully they come back and tie the series up. Have a great evening. Take care of yourself. Be safe, and God bless.
You've been listening to the Rosen Report, sports like never before, with your host, Rosey. Brought to you by Gooch Live and Paramount Sports Management.